What's up, my good people of the internet? Dan Tortora here, hanging out with you where sports truly meets that thing called life. I hope you're having yourselves a wonderful morning this morning, and I appreciate your patience as we got the show ready and set for you here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We are worldwide to you in central and upstate New York, down in Florida, our second home, up and down the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around this spinning globe of ours on youtube.com/wakeupcalldt, on facebook.com/wakeupcalldt, and on wakeupcalldt.podbean.com. So however you're connected with the show, we thank you so much for tuning in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, and I hope you had yourselves a wonderful extended Labor Day weekend. So hopefully things went well. You're doing well today. If you're not, well, guess what? We're gonna turn that frown upside down, because that's what we do here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And if you're having a great time, well, we're gonna keep it going. So I hope that you got yourself out and did something nice for Labor Day, or you stayed in and did something nice. You know, sometimes the best thing to do, and you know, it's funny because growing up as a kid, you think about when you have 5 seconds to yourself, what do you want to do? You want to go out, you want to do something. You know, you're bored, you want to call your friends, you want to go out somewhere. And then as you get older, the fun thing to do is to just relax, is to be at home, is to, be around family and friends, or sometimes just to be by yourself. So, it's interesting how life goes when you continue to move forward, where, like I said, as a kid, you might be thinking to yourself, it's Labor Day, I got to go to the fair, I got to do this, I got to do that, I got to do something. Good morning to William out here, and appreciate you as always, sir. And definitely appreciate the Syracuse tailgate. We had a great time. And we'll get into that in a second here. But, as we get older, it's like, well, what are we doing? Are we partying? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? That becomes, I just want to sit down and I just want to relax. I just want some time to myself, and whatever that may be, whatever that is. Yesterday was a great day for me. I went to the press conference with Dino Babers, which typically I can't do. So if you don't hear me there, it's because it's literally during my show. It's right at the end of my broadcast, but we have to be there by a certain time. So it's during my broadcast, or else I'd be there every week, which was the intent the whole time. So because they keep changing the time of it over these last couple of years, it's affected my ability to be there weekly, which I would love to be. So if you're wondering why you don't hear me every week at Dino's Monday press conference, it's because it conflicts with the show. So I definitely appreciated the fact that I could go there yesterday, because we had a bunch of specials set up with Alfred University. So I was able to go to Dino's broadcast, or Dino's press conference, and you can watch all those videos on all of our social media, on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, Twitter at CallDT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. So make sure you check those out. And we definitely had a good time out there. Got a lot of good stuff. Spoke with Dino on numerous topics. So I hope you get a chance to check those out and enjoy your morning with a nice cup of tea and some conversation there from Dino Babers. So we got a lot to get into today. Very much excited to do so. And like I said, I hope you did something nice for your time here on Labor Day. And I mean, I did that. Went out to the press conference. Then I went out to the fair. Last day of the fair. It's kind of become a little bit of a tradition. And so I just wanted to go out, see some things, support the companies that I work with, and and to go out and have some fun. And that's exactly what I did. Got some awesome food, got to see some good people, and ultimately had a good time. So food, whatever you did yesterday for Labor Day, hopefully it was fun, hopefully it was relaxing, hopefully it was meaningful, and hopefully whatever you did, you're recovering well today. William said, I'm still recovering from my 11-hour drive. I'm getting old. Yeah, I mean that's the thing too, is I love to drive, right? I love driving. I love it, right? And I've been doing it for such a long time, and I'm so used to doing things on my own. I'm so used to, you know, I got it. If I want to get something done, I have to do it. And so in that situation, in that reality, I'm used to driving all the time, and I could agree with you, man. It's funny how like you just drive and that's all you know, and then all of a sudden you get you get exhausted, and it makes you want to go night night. But yeah, so I mean, and it is. I think I am tired, very tired. We've just opened up this season, and for college football, the NFL officially starts this Thursday, September 7th. So there's a lot of stuff going on, and it's easy to become tired. And so I hope I hope you're resting, you're rehabbing, you're relaxing, because life gets busy. And I had a great time this week, had a fantastic weekend, and we're going to talk about all that. So we're going to start off the show inside of MonPazPopcorn.com's What's Poppin', speaking on college football. We're going to get into a bunch of different games here to start things off, which I'm really excited about. I got a message from Adam. DT, what a college football weekend. Absolutely loved it. Have a nice day, my friend. You as well. I appreciate you, sir. I know you were supporting FSU. So FSU had themselves they had themselves a great start. So did Duke. So we're going to get into Wyoming over Texas Tech, Florida State over LSU, Colorado over TCU, Duke over Clemson. We'll also get into Texas State over Baylor and the Syracuse Shutout, all coming up here in hour number 1 to start off Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. And then in hour 2, we're going to have our bi-monthly segment, which moves from Wednesdays to Tuesdays from here on out. Every other Tuesday, we have Blessings in Baseball, featuring my good buddy Dukes Knutson, who is the press box manager of the Tampa Bay Rays. He joins me to talk about God, faith, and Major League Baseball. Having some fun and doing things differently than you typically hear out there, which is what Wake Up Call is all about. Being positive, being driven by God, and being different in the best of ways. So we're happy to be here with you, and happy to have Dukes in hour 2. And then we'll finish off Tuesday's show, as we always do, with the ingredients to success, proudly presented by the fantastic team at Avicolli's on 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool, New York, right at the corner of Wetzel Road and Route 57, the place for you to go to in our beautiful community here in central and upstate New York. And it is literally down the road from Liverpool High School. You can walk there. So look forward to seeing you over at Avicolli's, and I appreciate everybody that supported them over the years. So let's get into college football talk, because there's so many things going on. But before we do that, ACC expansion, folks. Craziness of this. SMU, Cal, and Stanford in 2024-25, next season. These will be full members of the Atlantic Coast Conference. And you're saying to yourself, but Dan, it's the Atlantic Coast. But following suit with the Big 12, which you would typically think is a Midwest conference, and following suit with the Big 10, which has 18, it will have 18, but it's still called the Big 10. They need to change their name, figure that out. Has 4 West Coast schools. And all of this craziness of 2,500 miles in between places, 2,600 miles in between places, setting the new record is the ACC, bringing in Cal and Stanford. Cal is over 2,800 miles away from Syracuse. It is a 40-hour trip that is a horizontal line across the country. But this is the future of the Atlantic Coast Conference. I have to say it again. Atlantic Coast Conference. Nuts. Mike said Duke shocked college football last night. Clemson was flat in the first half. Yeah, we're going to get into that in just a second here. But speaking on the ACC, this is your future. And we're going to be getting into it throughout the week because there's some interesting things happening, including the interesting deal that SMU has made to come into the conference that at first glance doesn't make a whole lot of logical sense. So we'll be discussing that here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. So let's get into last night's game, Clemson and Duke. Now, for those of you that have followed the show and been with me for a long time, I appreciate that first and foremost. You know that I spent time speaking with Riley Leonard in his recruitment. Riley Leonard is the quarterback of the Duke Blue Devils. He's from the state of Alabama. His recruitment came down to Syracuse or Duke. He was choosing between the Orange and the Blue Devils, and he ultimately chose to go to Duke. When he chose to go to Duke, they had head coach David Cutcliffe, who is a quarterback guru. Now they have Mike Elko, who brought the team in a massive turnaround last season, and now, as of last night, that turnaround continues to turn in the right direction as Mike Elko and the Duke Blue Devils, this is not a basketball game, folks, they defeated Clemson and Dabo Swinney 28-7 at home in North Kakalaki. So now we start off the season with a Clemson team 0-1, who is ranked in the nation's top 10 at number 9, against Duke, who was not ranked. And this victory with my guy Riley Leonard means a lot to me because, like I said, I've known Riley for so many years. So getting to know him, being around for his recruitment, getting to build those relationships that I value so very much, I was just excited to see him. You know, I was excited to see him out there playing the game, doing what he loves. I'm so happy he became the starting quarterback. I'm so happy he worked his tail off to be where he is today. And he just showed the world, not the country, not North Carolina, not the ACC. He just showed the world, because they were on as the only college football game last night. He showed the world what he can do, which I don't think we've seen all of it. And Duke showed the country what they can do as well. There has been a bunch of upsets that have happened here in college football to start off this season already. And like I said, we'll get into those. But to get deeper into this Duke game, what does this mean? Because the thing about the college football playoff right now, mind you folks, it's only 4 spots. Now, Clemson hasn't been the Clemson that, you know, a lot of people have come to know. A 10-win Clemson team ain't good enough to make the college football playoff in recent history here. So, what's going to happen now? Most teams can lose a game and be considered for the college football playoff. Nobody can lose 2 and be considered, except for Alabama, in my opinion. And probably the Big Ten, because they could do whatever they want and still get considered for the college football playoff. And again, it is not an attack on the Big Ten. I would say this about any conference that had unfair treatment. The Big Ten has a better route to the college football playoff than most. And there's not a lot of logical, factual reasoning behind it. It's more of Michigan and Ohio State have big names and big following. Well, that's nice. You should be playing a championship if you're one of the best 4 teams. Not just because you have a great name. So, Clemson, albeit week 1, and I guess it's called week 0 because it started on the 26th and the other game started on the 31st, so it was only a few days before week 0 when Navy played Notre Dame in Dublin, Ireland, and so on and so forth. And Mike, yes, they're bringing all their teams to the ACC. SMU, Cal, Stanford, everybody's coming. Not that any of these moves care about Olympic sports or care to talk to them, which is ridiculously wrong, but yes, all the sports are coming. So now that Clemson's lost a game, the question becomes, are they out? Because Clemson wasn't ending this, they didn't end the season last season high, right? When it comes to rankers. And I don't think they came into this season with as much respect as they typically get. So, where do we go from here? Clemson, now having lost the game, could be out of this thing for good. Because they can't lose another game and be in the college football playoff. I know it's crazy to say because it's week 1, but they can't lose another game and be in the college football playoff. And here's their schedule. They'll play Charleston Southern, FAU, shout out Tom Herman. Then they'll play Florida State on Saturday, September 23rd, thank goodness, at home, but it's Florida State. It's the Florida State team that I told y'all about years ago. When Mike Norvell came in, I said, they're going to be fine. Give him time. He's a good coach. He can recruit. He could send guys to the NFL. I covered him the entire time he was at Clemson, at Memphis for those 4 years. I have no worries about Mike Norvell at Florida State. I said that over and over and over again. And then Papa Joe said, give him 3 years, give him 3 years. And now here's year number 4, and we'll talk about Florida State. But Florida State also nationally put on a clinic on Sunday Night Football against LSU. That game against Florida State could be their second loss. And we could say that before the end of September, before the end of the first month of football, Clemson will be out of the college football playoff. Then they'll be at Syracuse, which, mind you folks, if this is not as strong of a Clemson football team as we have seen in the past, they have come to Syracuse and lost when they were the reigning national champion and number two ranked team in the country. They're not going to come in. They're not going to come in like that. They might come in beaten and bruised from Florida State, which is a perfect time for Syracuse to play them. Whoever scheduled that was a genius. And tickets right now are as low as $48 to come see Clemson at Syracuse. You better buy those tickets up. Then they have Wake Forest, who's no slouch. That game's at home. Then they're at Miami, at NC State, who's a lot better than people give them credit for. Then they have to play Notre Dame, which will be an interesting game on ABC on Saturday, November 4th, also at home. Georgia Tech at home, North Carolina at home, and then at South Carolina. I feel like this is a Clemson team that could lose 3 or 4 games this season. Based on what I just saw, I think this team could lose 3 or 4 games this season. They could lose 3 or 4 games this season, and then all of a sudden, and yeah, Williams said the playing field is starting to level out in the ACC. ACC teams are getting better, and Clemson is not the top anymore. So then Mike said all about the money for that move of the schools joining the ACC. Yeah, man, it's crazy. 2,800 miles. I know we're talking about a lot of different things at the same time, but this college football talk, we're going to be talking college football all throughout the week because I can't help myself. And no, it's because there's a lot of stuff to unpack, a lot of stuff to talk about. You know, Papa Joe is in the takeover every Thursday where he joins me and co-hosts the entire show with me from 9 to 11 a.m. Eastern time. And him and I will be talking about college football, the start of the NFL, the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we'll be getting into baseball season as we continue to get down the stretch toward the playoffs. So a lot of big things coming up with PJ. And by the way, William, while you're listening, would love to get your thoughts on the Chicago White Sox. As they said, they're looking at moving the team down the road, looking at moving the stadium to another part, maybe to a totally different state. So I don't know how much you heard about that, but would love to get your thoughts. So yeah, so Clemson, to start things off here, is in a situation where they're not going to be in the college football playoff this year. Here's the other thing. If Florida State, who I consider the top 2 preseason to come into the ACC, one of the top 2 teams in the ACC preseason-wise. If Florida State does what I think they can do, and what PJ and I were predicting with Mike Norvell being successful there, if Florida State stays at the top, then that means the door is open for any other team in the ACC, because there are no divisions anymore, folks, inside of the Atlantic Coast Conference. The top 2 teams make it to the ACC championship. And I want to remind people of this. Just a few years ago, 2018, Syracuse would have played for the ACC championship with Clemson if they didn't have divisions back then. That was just a few years ago. The year Syracuse went 10-3 overall and went to the Camping World Bowl, which is now called, I don't even know at this point, the Cheez-It Bowl. So, think about that. Could this be time for Syracuse, right? Like I said, looking at Clemson's schedule, I think they're going to lose 3 to 4 games this season. Looking at Syracuse's schedule, I could see them starting 3-1. If this Clemson team continues to falter, I could see that being another win here. And this is why we do preseason predictions, and then we talk during the season. Because preseason-wise, I made predictions. I've been right, I've been wrong. In season, I've been right, I've been wrong. The thing is when you make a preseason prediction and you're right, it's incredible. It's incredible because it's so hard. When you make an in-season prediction as well, after you get to see a team for a couple games. Let's see what Clemson looks like in these next couple games. That's why I tell people we do preseason and then we do during the season. Because preseason, you're working with paper, you're working with history, you're working with numbers of things that have happened. You're looking at what you think is going to be based on what you have, right? But in season, you can assess the team and make another prediction, an updated one, if you will. And so I tell people this all the time. You make a preseason prediction, then you come a couple games in, and then you make a prediction again. Because sometimes it stays the same and sometimes it doesn't. The preseason prediction is that Clemson leads the ACC. After seeing how they played against Duke, it's hard to believe that unless this team really turns it around really quickly, that they're going to be in a place where they'll be at the top again. I don't think that's going to happen. Mike said, didn't Clemson lose their quarterback? He wasn't going to be their starter, Mike. But yes, DJ Uyunglele went to Oregon State and won his first game over at Oregon State. So congratulations to him on that. But if you look at Syracuse's schedule, let's say they start 4-1. They got to play at North Carolina and at Florida State. Those are tough, okay? That could have them go 4-3 or 5-2. At Virginia Tech, you would like to think that they're going to... Syracuse, with 4 games to go, could have 6 wins. With 4 games to go, could have 6 wins. They could have 5. But I think seeing Syracuse, and they got Boston College and Pitt at home, at Georgia Tech and Wake Forest. Outside of Wake Forest, it's a good way to end this, and Pitt's going to be tough too. But I think we could see Syracuse get to 8 wins. I think we could see them as an 8-win team this year. Based on what we're seeing. Again, preseason prediction, you have your thoughts, right? Preseason, I'm thinking Syracuse 6 wins, right? We're a game in, and Syracuse has a lot to show, but you start to see these teams. I don't think Syracuse is beating Florida State, and I don't think Syracuse is beating Florida State on the road. So I just don't think that's going to happen. Florida State, looking at the schedule that they have coming up here, Florida State has Southern Miss, which is a win, at Boston College, which I have as a win, at Clemson, which I have as a win, Virginia Tech, which I have as a win. That's 5-0. And then they'll play Syracuse at home, which I think is 6-0. Duke will be interesting where they are at that time against Florida State. then at Wake Forest, at Pitt, Miami, North Alabama, and at Florida. There's a chance. I had Florida State preseason going 10-2. There is a chance of them having more than 10 wins moving forward. So we shall see. But again, you look at the schedule, you look at the team, you start to plan these things out, and you say to yourself, okay, this is what I think is going to happen based on what I know. And then you start to see things. College football is only 12 games. Division I FBS, 12 games. That's it. So you look at week 1 and you say to yourself, it's only week 1. If you want to play in your conference championship and you want to make the college football playoff, you can't afford a trip at any point. Now, I don't know, and none of us know, how this Clemson team is going to respond to what just happened. Only they know that. But Clemson is in a place right now where I don't think this team, I thought that Florida State was going to be a tough out, but this Clemson team is, speaking of out, they're out of the college football playoff. And I don't think they're getting in. I think the respect from the committee's gone down a little bit. And I think that ultimately Clemson is not in good shape. I think Florida State has a shot at making the college football playoff. I think if they go 12-0 and 11-1, absolutely. But I got them getting at least 10 wins preseason-wise coming in. We shall see. So, speaking of that Florida State, before we take a step aside for a fast break, Florida State, folks, wow. I had them beating LSU. But they didn't just beat LSU. They put the beat down on LSU. 45-24 at Camping World Stadium, where Syracuse played in that Camping World Bowl just a few years ago in Orlando, Florida. 45-24, they take them down. Jordan Travis, the guy that people said 3 years ago, why is he our quarterback? He sucks. This guy's not good. Worst quarterback I've seen at Florida State in how many years? Blah, 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 blah. What y'all saying now? Jordan Travis, 23-31, 342 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception. Keon Coleman, I think he likes him a little bit. Guy had 3 of those 4 passing touchdowns from Jordan Travis. Johnny Wilson, with Coleman, went over 100 yards receiving. Jaheim Bell had a tutty. The defense had 4 sacks in this game. And the transfer, who I got to speak with in the offseason, Jared Verse from Albany, that man is a freak. If you haven't watched him play, I don't know what you're doing. I don't know why you haven't, but I hope you will. Former Syracuse player Deuce Chestnut had 4 tackles in the game, all solo. And he had one of those tackles for a loss. But the DBs, including Deuce, had no answer for FSU. The Noles are 1-0. They beat the Tigers, who are ranked above them, and the rankings will be coming out here soon here, ranked above them at 5. Florida State was ranked at 8, and they took down LSU by 21 points. Florida State's got to be a top 5 ranked team this week. They got to be ranked in the top 5 this week. If not, it's a mistake. Who else are you going to put in the top 5? Right? Who are you going to put there? Georgia? Okay. Michigan beat East Carolina, who's getting better in the American Athletic, but not good enough to say Michigan is better than Florida State right now. Ohio State, same thing. Who did they play? And then Alabama, I mean, it's a cupcake city over here. So Florida State deserves definitely to be in the top 5. Definitely to be in the top 5. You know. And at the end of the season, they'll show people. Right? Florida State, again, Papa Joe and I called this. We talked about Mike Norvell, what he was going to do, the time that he has, give him at least 3 years. We've talked about this. We've discussed this numerous times on the show. You're seeing it come to fruition. Florida State is a different breed this season, and it's going to be nutsy Fagan. And I'm very excited for it, and I'm looking forward to it, because I thought Clemson and Florida State were going to battle. But if this Clemson sees this Florida State in a couple weeks on Saturday, September 23rd, Florida State's going to make that look like a cupcake game. I don't think it's going to be like outrageous, but there's a part of me that does. There's a part of me that's like, nah, there's no way that Clemson. But if Duke is good, Florida State's better than that. So we shall see what we shall see. But I'm excited for it, very much so. William said, Dan, you know, let's see what he says here. You know they won't put them top 5. I would be surprised if they do. And that's the thing. Top 5 spots are reserved for who? The SEC, which deserves it most of the time, but Georgia played UT Martin. So let's call it what it is. If we're actually going to rank based on this past week, then Florida State deserves to be in the top 5. Georgia beat UT Martin. Michigan beat East Carolina. And these are all blowout games. Ohio State beat Indiana, which is a conference game for them, which they'll probably consider a good win because the Big Ten anytime you beat anybody in the Big Ten looks good, allegedly. Alabama beat Middle Tennessee. So, former Syracuse head coach Scott Schaefer got to go up against Alabama this past week. They won 56-7, Alabama did. And LSU lost to Florida State. So what are we talking about? They're going to say, well, LSU obviously wasn't that good of a team this year, and we predicted them. So, Florida State, based on the games, Florida State should be ranked number 1 in the country right now. In reality, let me say it again. Reality, Florida State should be ranked number 1 in the country right now. Who had a better game? Duke? All right. Duke should be ranked in the top 25. Duke only got 4 votes by the media to be ranked in the top 25 in the preseason. 4 national votes. Got 2 by the coaches. Can people be wrong? Yeah. Do most people admit it? Heck no. But Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Alabama, they did not have the competition that Florida State had. And Florida State played this on neutral. Albeit in Florida. They didn't play it in Tallahassee. They played it, 4 hours away? So, look at the reality of the current AP Top 25 and the current coaches poll. Florida State is a top 5 team, or they should be first. Mike said Colorado should be ranked number 1 overall. He said he was kidding, though. Colorado also won their game. And we'll discuss Colorado. I'm looking at the Colorado piece here as well to see if they ranked them in the nation's top 20. Well, if they gave them votes for the top 25. They did. And it doesn't look like they got any votes. Oh, yes. No, they did not. They didn't get any votes from the AP in the preseason top 25, and they didn't get any votes from the coaches poll either. So, interesting. But Yeah, Colorado had a big-time win. So did Texas State, which everybody wants to focus on prime time. I want to talk about the fact that Texas State took down Baylor, who's been a good team over these past few seasons, and one of those teams that some people thought was going to be in the college football playoff in recent history. So we'll take a step aside for a fast break. Like I said, there's so many college football things to get into. We have barely just begun this week, and that's what makes me so excited about what's to come. Right after this on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant.
GG Cards and Breaks. Like, comment, subscribe.
GG Cards and Breaks on 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York. Your hobby shop, your sports card home is at GG Cards and Breaks, open 7 days a week. Monday through Saturday from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. and on Sundays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. GG Cards and Breaks offering you singles, packs, boxes, as well as graded cards. The opportunity to have your cards sent in and be graded by SGC. And they have all of the materials that you need, all different size top loaders. They have pages, binders, everything that you need for your sports card collecting hobby. And also at GG Cards and Breaks, they have every Major League Baseball, NFL, and NBA team that you can go through the boxes and search for really cool inserts, autographs, patch cards, and rookie cards as well for all of your teams. GG Cards and Breaks does it differently, and I cannot thank them enough for the difference that they bring to the hobby. Same hobby, in my opinion, new memories. GG Cards and Breaks, 639 Delmar Place in Syracuse, New York, right off of Teal Ave. With that being said, here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets that thing called life, we're continuing to talk about college football, and then we'll get into, in just a few minutes, blessings and baseball with my good friend Dukes Knutson, who's going to be joining me here, and the ingredients to success to round out the show, as we always do on a Tuesday, proudly presented by Avicolli's with a new topic and new ingredients to success. So let's talk about prime time. So let's talk about this first and foremost. Prime time, did he coach the game? Yeah. But his players played the game. When Colorado defeated TCU, who's ranked in the top 20 in the country, when that happened, I heard a lot about primetime. But I didn't hear a lot about the team. I heard a lot about his son, but I didn't hear a lot about the team. And I would love to hear about the team. So that's one of my gripes with this thing, is that, you come off of it, and it's like, Dion won. Look at what Dion did. Dion. Prime time. Okay, well, that's great. That's great. Nick Saban's a hell of a coach. But do his players play, or does he play? Because the last time I checked, you have to coach well, but your players have to play well. So how about giving some credit to the rest of the Colorado players? Can you name another Colorado player? besides Deion's son. So I'm not saying I'm not happy for Deion, and I'm not saying I'm not happy for his child. What I'm saying is, can we give a little bit of love to the team and not just Deion and Deion's son? Now, Deion's son, Shedeur Sanders, 510 yards, which is a team record in the history of Colorado for the Buffaloes. In a single game, 510 passing yards, 4 touchdowns in his debut. Beautiful, beautiful, wonderful. I'm not taking any of that away from him. But what about Dylan Edwards? What about Sivian Wilkerson? What about Jace Feely? Right? What about everybody else that did it? What about Jimmy Horn Jr.? Dylan Edwards had himself a day, by the way. 3 touchdowns? 4 touchdowns. 4 touchdowns Dylan Edwards had. He had a 4-yard pass in the first quarter from Sanders. Then in the third quarter, he had a 75-yard pass from Sanders. He had a 7-yard run at the end of the third quarter with 27 seconds left, and he ended the game as the final score with a 46-yard pass from Sanders. So how about Dylan Edwards? How about we talk about that? So I'm happy for Colorado. I thought this was going to be a tough game. I really did. I almost picked him. I was sitting here. I went TCU. So did Papa Joe. And because we do our picks every Thursday when Papa Joe's with me in the PJ Takeover. We do our college football and NFL picks every week. Our first NFL picks of the season are happening this Thursday, so we hope you'll join us for that. So we did our picks, and I almost picked Colorado. And I thought this was going to be a good game, and I thought it was going to be a close game, and this game did not disappoint. Coming all the way down the wire, 45-42 Colorado over TCU, which is an awesome thing. The Big 12 did not have a nice day. They didn't have a nice day. Texas Tech lost to Wyoming. A nice week, I should say. Texas Tech lost to Wyoming. TCU lost to Colorado. Baylor lost to Texas State. Not looking good, right, for the Big 12 to start things off. Big 12 steals from the Pac. Pac has a great opening week. The Big 12 has a not so great opening week. But Colorado in this win, it's huge. And I know that Prime brings a lot with him. But we need to talk about the team and not just make this about Deion. This isn't a Deion Sanders reality show. This is a football team. 4 guys had 100 yards receiving on this team. Jimmy Horn Jr. had 117 on 11 catches and a touchdown. Xavier Weaver had 6 catches, 118 yards. Travis Hunter had 11 catches for 119 yards. Dylan Edwards had 5 catches for 135 yards and three receiving touchdowns plus his rushing touchdown. That's nuts. That's absolutely insane. TCU, with 10 guys getting at least 1 catch, had 279 yards. Between Dylan Edwards and Travis Hunter, they had 254 yards. So the two of them combined were just shy of the entire TCU receiving team. Shiloh Sanders had 10 tackles to lead the team, 9 solo. Marvin Ham II had 10 tackles, 7 solo in this game. Nobody sacked the quarterback for Colorado. TCU had 4 sacks on Sanders. But I'm really excited for Colorado, and I'm excited for what can happen with them. Let's just make sure that we don't make all of this about Deion. Yes, he's the coach. Yes, he's putting the team together. Yes, he deserves credit. But so does the team. And I feel like like I said, I don't want this to become a Deion Sanders reality show. Because that's not what it's supposed to be. But media will push for that because that's what media does. Not this media, but other media does that stuff. And I'm not for that. And we're not going to do that here. We'll talk about Prime, but we're not going to forget about everybody else. Texas State over Baylor. Another big-time game that happened here. Like I said, the Big 12 not having a good opening week. So the Big 12 in the news for taking a ton of the Pac-12 and putting it in their conference. And now, seeing what the future will be for the Big 12, but the present has been some struggle. Present didn't look as pretty. The present, kind of fugly. And Texas State beating Baylor, not by a last-second field goal. Texas State beating Baylor 42-31 on the road, baby. Those Bobcats, they've made a little push in the NCAA tournament, but they're coming from the what? Sun Belt, baby. The Sun Belt, Texas State putting it on Baylor on the road, 42-31. I love it. No offense to Baylor. I love seeing teams like this make it happen. Ishmael had a 10-yard pass from TJ Finley and a 65-yard run in the first quarter. Denario Davenport had a pass from Finley in the second quarter. Looking at the scoring drives here, Jamil Jeter had a 1-yard touchdown run in the second quarter. 28-13 at the half for Texas State. Texas State only trailed in this game in the first few minutes, down 3-0 off of a field goal by Baylor's Isaiah Hankins, which was from 23 yards out. They took the lead at 7:33 remaining in the first quarter and never looked back from there, never trailed for the rest of this game. Not in the second quarter, not in the third, not in the fourth. Think about this. In 60 minutes of play, they had the lead. Speaking of Texas State over Baylor, in 60 minutes of play, they had the lead for over 52 minutes. Drake Dabney tried to make things interesting with a pass from Blake Shapen, and Shapen got injured on this. I think he's going to be out a couple weeks, so God bless him and anyone that's injured in any way, shape, or form, that they may get healthy, stay healthy, and get back to action as soon as possible. Baylor did score the last points of the game with 8:52 left with Greg Dabney and a 2-yard pass from Blake Shapen. But Joey Hobart's 26-yard pass for TJ Finley made it 42-24. So when that touchdown came from Dabney, it was 42-31 with 8:52 to go. Nobody scored after that, and Texas State gets the W. I was gonna say two different things at the same time, and it ended up being W. But they get the W, and they move things forward. We're gonna have Dukes Knutson joining us here momentarily, but appreciate so very much what Texas State did for the Sun Belt and what they did for themselves. It's huge to start off the season this way. And then Wyoming, if y'all stayed up for that game like I did, what a game. What a game, what a game, what a game, what a game, what a mighty good game that was. And that matchup, Texas Tech at Wyoming, double overtime, 2-point conversion failed by Texas Tech, secured by Wyoming. What a way to finish things. Man, that was fun. Man, I had a great time with that. I had such a good time with that. And to see that happen was, I hope that you didn't miss it. I hope you didn't miss it. I'm sure some people did because they weren't thinking about Wyoming. But just
Recording
so you know, if
in
you're
progress.
a Josh Allen fan,
Recording stopped.
that's Josh Allen's alma mater, Wyoming. And it was almost the school that Eric Dungy went to. And he was going to be fighting for the starting job with Josh Allen. So, interesting if he had gone to Wyoming and not to Syracuse. But crazy stuff happening in college football. Duke getting a victory over Clemson. probably taking away Clemson's hopes at playing for a national championship. And then on top of that, to see Florida State take down LSU, I thought they would, but they did it in an even bigger fashion. Then to see Colorado take down TCU, to see what that era is in Colorado. Wyoming over Texas Tech, as well as Texas State over Baylor. And Syracuse's shutout. I don't think that I have ever seen, I know I've never seen in my broadcasting of 19 plus years, 20 later on this year, I have never experienced a Syracuse shutout like that. And I've never experienced Syracuse scoring almost 70 points firsthand. So to see that, albeit Colgate, and they were supposed to win that game, good to see a bunch of different receivers get involved and a lot of great things happen. We're going to be speaking about that as the week progresses, and I am looking forward to it beyond doubt. So with that being said, as we shift gears from one field to the next, from football to baseball, I am always happy to have my good friend here on the broadcast with me, and that is Dukes Knutson. We've been off the air from having some time together in these last few weeks, as scheduling has not provided the opportunity. But now that it has, and we have moved to Tuesdays every other Tuesday, I look forward to what this is going to bring to your week as well as to your months and everything coming up. Blessings in baseball, with Dukes and I speaking about God, faith, and Major League Baseball. I proudly bring in Dukes. Dukes, how are we doing today?
Good morning. Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it, Daniel?
It has. It's been a minute for sure. The last time we spoke, there was no college football. NFL wasn't starting up. All these things were kind of quiet, and now we're in the craziness of it. And now that we're inside of college football and the NFL starting and baseball is getting toward the playoffs, all of a sudden it feels like we've been in this thing, in this pressure cooker for weeks now, but it's only just begun. And baseball, it does kind of take a back seat when some of this comes in, and then things start to even out. So there's a lot of great things happening. There are still some races, which is great to see, because my Arizona Diamondbacks are still alive, baby. And I will hold on to that as long as I can. But a lot of good fun here in the baseball world. How have you been in these last couple of weeks?
Well, I didn't even notice. Did football start? Is football going on now?
Yeah.
It's baseball season, man. This is prime baseball season, and we got a couple more months left, and then they can start playing football.
Yeah, and football season, it's exciting. They definitely started the campaign off, some of these teams, with taking away some teams' campaign for the college football playoff. But as baseball, speaking of playoffs, goes on here, we know that in the world of Major League Baseball, some of these are going down to the wire. Other pieces are just out of touch. And some of these divisions have been out of touch for a while now when it comes to the Atlanta Braves and the NL East, and their closest team to them being 14.5 games back, the Phillies, and the Marlins 20.5 back, the Mets 27.5 games back, the Nationals 29. In the National League East, Dukes, are you surprised, and why, if you are, of what this division has looked like really since before the midpoint, before the All-Star break, that the Braves have simply run away with this thing and that no one has contested them, and the Mets just look like they're giving it all up to try and get Shohei Ohtani?
Yeah, who can deny that they're not disappointed in what's happened to the Mets? I mean, from the beginning of the season, during the offseason when they spent so much money on getting some players. And I guess it just goes to prove that money doesn't always buy you a championship. And that team has been in such disarray. And I think you got to watch out for Philadelphia right now. Just like last year, they're catching fire here at the end, and they're gonna be something to reckon with here towards the end. But not surprised that the Braves are where they're at. Again, I think most people predicted they'd be at or near the top. It's just that the other teams haven't done as well as probably we thought. No, you mentioned the Marlins. What did you say, 20 out?
The Marlins, 20.5 out.
Yeah, and yet they're still in the wild card chase. So it's I give a lot of credit to Major League Baseball, the way they designed this playoff system. I mean, there's still a lot of teams that have something to play for.
Yeah, and that's the thing when we look at some of these divisions and these, and like you said, we're being so out. If you told somebody, oh, this team's 20 games out, this team's 14 games out, you would think that there's no way that they could possibly be playing for a wild card. But based on some of these divisions and some of these scenarios, there are teams that are still mathematically in it, and we shall see as we come down the stretch here. We know that there's 3 wild card teams. It's not just 2 anymore. And having that opportunity gives so much to what could be coming down the stretch here. And this is the exciting part of it. Once we start to see, yeah, we got the teams that are fighting to win their division, and we still have that back and forth happening between the Rays and the Orioles. And at the same time, we have teams that are vying just to get in. Let's go to the AL East, and that division that you spend so much time within as the press box manager of the Tampa Bay Rays. What's your take on where the Rays are right now and that Orioles team that we have seen show up for a couple years now? They'll show up, they'll disappear. They'll start off really hot, they'll disappear. There's seasons where they'll get to 10 wins, 15 wins pretty quick, but eventually they dip off. That didn't happen this year for the Orioles. They caught fire. They continue to move forward in a positive way, and they're still in a place where they are leading the AL East. So your thoughts on the Orioles and the Rays as the Orioles lead the charge in the entire American League, and the Rays are the top team in the wild card right now?
Well, it's definitely still a race, but like you said, Dan, the Orioles are playing so consistently and such a good brand of baseball. It's going to be very difficult for the Rays to catch them. Um, I don't know the stat offhand, but I'm sure you've heard it. I don't know how many series has it been now where the Orioles have not lost a series. It's unbelievable. It's almost 2 years. And so their consistency is, to me, is the big difference right now. And the young guys they brought up, I see where Jackson Holiday now has been moved up to AAA, so they got more young guys coming on the horizon. So that's going to be a tough task to catch them. Not saying it's not possible, but the Rays, of course, are in a real good position, at least for that top wild card position. I think they're still 5 or 6 up on that. So they're both going to be in the playoffs.
Yeah, and the Blue Jays still in the hunt. So are the Red Sox and the Yankees, still mathematically 8 games out of getting in. But it's hard to believe that Houston or Texas would be giving any of that up. Seattle and Minnesota taking care of business as well. And then looking on the other side of it, Atlanta, who we mentioned, the Dodgers and the Brewers, the Philadelphia Phillies, as far as they are behind the Braves, are the top team in the wild card. Chicago Cubs and my Arizona Diamondbacks are in it. They are playing this. This is the thing about the Arizona Diamondbacks. If they get in the playoffs this year, it will be truly, I know everybody has to earn a spot, but if you look at the schedule and the series that the Diamondbacks had left over a span of these last couple months, if they get into this year's Major League Baseball postseason, they will have truly earned it more than most, because seeing them and who they had to play, the Orioles, the Rangers, the Reds, the Dodgers, so many massive series against teams that are in the postseason, some of the best teams, some of the top teams, and Arizona beat the Rangers. They found ways to beat the Reds. They lost in their series against the Dodgers, but they've done well recently here again. They have 71 wins, and at the beginning of the season, somebody gave me an over-under on 65, and I said, I think the Diamondbacks could get to 90. So the fact that they've gotten over 65 for me, 71 at 67 at the time that we're talking here. What do you think about the Arizona Diamondbacks? Because they have to kind of go through this massive gamut to get in. However, they've been doing enough to be just outside of the wild card, or as of this morning, they're in the wild card.
Well, I think they're in the same boat as a lot of these teams. I mean, the Giants are right there too, ready. The Reds. I like what Arizona did. They picked up a couple of pretty good pieces there that the trading did. Tommy Pham's been terrific, and so they're definitely, like you say, they're right there. But again, so are the Giants, so are the Reds and the Marlins, and it's going to be a great September. That's why I don't understand how you can be thinking about football, Dan.
Because I gotta have it all ready. But
Yeah, I know you do. I don't though.
yeah, you don't have to. And Dukes, I mean, we talk about faith, we talk about family, we talk about staying together and finding positives inside of the storm. I know it's been an interesting scenario down in Tampa. Obviously, losing to a very unique circumstance, one of the best players, best young talent on Tampa. How have you seen the team respond, and how have you seen kind of the culture of this team? Because Tampa has been navigating a storm outside of baseball in general, which affected baseball and affected their team and affected their lineup. And at the same time, they're still doing what Tampa does, which is being successful. So just how you've seen the culture of this team and, the guys among this team just band together and continue to be successful.
Yeah, and that's a great point. The culture of the team. I think that's been a hallmark of the Rays for many years now, and this latest thing with Wander hasn't shaken that at all from what I've seen. It's just a lot of high character guys, and when you face adversity, you move on. You do what you have to do, and Basavi came up and did a fantastic job filling in, it's interesting that you heard no talk about Franco at all. Where's Wander? Too bad they don't. Let the investigation take care of itself. But we're moving on and we're playing our game, and yeah, it's. I really haven't seen a difference in the culture or even in the way they're playing. Got like I said, and Taylor Walls is now back to take over shortstop.
Yeah.
He did an incredible job the first half of the year before he got hurt, and so having him back is again just a real plus for them. And um, it's such a sad story about Wander, and again he innocent till proven guilty, but uh, this investigation just has to take its course, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, this team staying strong and not sitting here saying, well, what about Wander? What about this? What about that? To continue to move on here. And in moving on, the series continues against the Boston Red Sox at home. And then we'll see the Seattle Mariners at home, at Minnesota, which I know is important to you, at Baltimore, Los Angeles Angels at home, Toronto Blue Jays at home, Boston on the road, and Toronto on the road. So a bunch of series left to go here. Knowing that, obviously you're the press box manager down there for the Tampa Bay Rays, you get to have Boston, Seattle, the Angels, and the Blue Jays all in the Trop coming up here. What does that mean to you, these last few series that we'll see before the postseason?
Well, as you read that litany of teams coming in, it's an impressive list. I mean, those are some high quality teams, and again, that just uh, presents this how tough it's going to be here for the Rays to catch Baltimore, especially, but to maintain its hold on that number one wild card position. Um, the Rays. And I guess you could say this about a lot of teams, but the Rays seem to thrive on challenges. They don't back down. Um, uh, they look adversity in the face and say, "Bring it on." And so I suspect that they'll continue to play well. Last night was not a pretty picture at all. Not typical Rays game, but. I really think it's going to be fun, exciting, and this is what September baseball is all about.
And it is. I mean, we're in it. There's an interesting thing about baseball here. Speaking blessings in baseball with Duke's Knutson every other Tuesday, has been every other Wednesday. We've now shifted to Tuesday here, and at 10 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern time. Duke's, to look at baseball and just what it's become in Major League Baseball. If you played on my birthday, which is October 21st, you would have played to the end of the World Series. You would have gotten into the nitty-gritty of the World Series, probably the final game of the World Series or the second to last game. Now, if you get into the World Series, we're talking November. And then we're starting spring training in February. So December and January are the only two times where we're not seeing somebody on a field. Not saying that they don't practice, not saying that they're not out there all year long, but between spring training all the way to the World Series getting pushed in November now, we see baseball almost 12 months of the year. Do you think at this point we might as well just creep into December, have some January fun, and call it a 12-month sport?
No. And I come from a teaching and coaching background at the high school level, and I'm old school. And I find it kind of sad that at the high school level, so many players today are starting to specialize in high school. I mean, I grew up in an area where, in an era when most of the athletes were 2, 3, even 4 sport athletes.
Yeah,
you went from one sport to the next, and obviously it's different in pro sports. You do specialize, but these players need time away from home. I was just talking to a couple guys yesterday what a cruel lifestyle this is for athletes. And one pitcher told me yesterday, he said, he says, it's a price you pay. We play this game for 10 months, and then our families make so many sacrifices for us.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I'd be all in favor, to be honest, of reducing the schedule, even from a 162 to a 154, whatever works out. But it's too long. As I mentioned, I do like the playoff system.
Yeah.
So I don't know that I'd want to reduce that, but I could see us reducing the regular schedule.
Yeah, and I mean, I agree too. I think I've said it for a long time. 162 is too many games, but I mean, you said it. Specializing in high school, right? Not playing multiple sports. Now up in New York, what I love is we still have that. In upstate New York, I still have my lacrosse soccer players, my lacrosse basketball football players, my football baseball players. I still get to see that when I sit down with these high schools, with West Jenny, with CNS, with CBA, with Baldwinsville, with Liverpool. When I get to sit down with them and I see one for football, then I see him again for lacrosse, then I might see him for baseball. I think that's great, and I think it's important. We also have two-way players for football too. Our quarterback maybe playing safety a little bit, so it's not lost here, and I hope it never is. But like you said, high school specializing now with the focus being on, okay, you're in 8th grade and, you need to get a full ride. So you're going to play soccer and you're going to give up all the other sports that you love. And we're going to hone in on this so that we can get a Division I scholarship so that we don't have to pay for your education. So maybe you could play in the MLS. I mean, you think about it. If you're in 8th grade, you're 14 years old, 15 years old. So you're being put through this pressure cooker, again, to use that term, and you have to basically give up your childhood, because when you look at some of this stuff, we talk about football all the time in Florida, but when you look at training and baseball wise, I mean, I know a bunch of baseball players that even during COVID, when you couldn't play in New York, they're on the road with their dad. Well, we're going to go down to New Jersey. We could play in New Jersey. So we got a tournament here, then we had a tournament in PA, then we're back to Jersey, then we're to New York for 2 days, and we're going out to this thing in Florida. To be a kid and to want to be a Division I athlete or a Division II athlete or whatever, you have to give up so much. And in giving all of that up, you're essentially giving up your childhood just to get there, just to get to the top. And it's not that you don't love the sport, and it's not that it doesn't matter to you. It's the fact of, we don't talk enough about it because we talk about the free education and the kids get paid and they got NIL now and yada, yada, yada. But at the same time, there is a reality to the fact that these young kids are essentially being treated like cattle, and they're being branded in their sport, and then they're out there to graze and eat and then be ready for when somebody needs that cow. And I feel bad for student athletes in that respect because I don't think we talk about it enough.
Yeah, and I get it where there's a lot of pressure on the parents these days too. They feel that, we got to keep up with the Joneses. We got to go to all these camps. We got to play in the elite divisions, and we, as you said, we have to basically give up our kid's childhood if we want him to have a chance, him or her to have a chance of being that elite athlete. And in most cases, those kids are not going to be the Division I athletes, the pro athletes, but it's hard to identify that when your kid is 15 years old. One thing that really bothers me, and I plead ignorant on, I don't know the rules, but I do know, for example, there's a seventh grade basketball player, girls basketball player in Minnesota, who in seventh grade is being recruited by Division I college basketball schools.
Yeah.
Seventh grade. To me, there should be rules against that. You can't be talking to seventh, even, I think it should be to your junior or senior year, maybe, but not before that. Look at the pressure you're putting on these kids.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's, when you talk about that, I remember USC offered a quarterback who was in 8th grade years ago. And I mean, they showed this kid throwing, 14 years old, and they're like, man, look at this kid. Look what he can do. And I was like, is he 4 feet tall? I mean, it was just, I was like, what are you seeing? Here's 4'5" Timmy in 8th grade, and we know that he's going to be the next great USC quarterback. And I don't know. To me, I find it to be crazy. It's kind of like horse racing in a way. It's like people treating people as horses, and I still don't think that horses get treated that well either, where it's like, we're going to utilize you, we're going to attempt to make money off of you, and then when we're done with you, we don't really care what happens to you. We just cut you loose and hope for the best. So, it's the same thing with greyhounds. When you would see greyhound racing and the dogs would be done, and they'd be like, I don't know, a few years old, and then they'd be put up for adoption because nobody wanted the dog. So after the dog made a bunch of people tons of money, they would just say, well, you either adopt the dog or we're just going to kind of cut it loose and hope for the best. And not to compare people to animals, but I'm doing that not because I'm doing that, but because that's what the world is doing. The world is treating people like animals, and animals aren't even getting treated that well. So, coming from a home where my dog is my daughter, and I treat her with the love and kindness and respect that I would treat to anybody, human or animal, I would love to see people not get treated like animals, and animals not get treated like the level that they're treated as animals as well, where it's all about how much money can you make us. Again, Dukes, you and I have talked about this before. We live in a society where some people are about relationships and other people are about transactions. Relationships, which you and I care about, right? We don't see each other for 11 years. As soon as I see you, it's like I've never been gone, you've never been gone. It's like we've been around each other the whole time. Transactional relationships are walking up to someone, hitting the button, taking money out of the ATM, walking up again when you need money, taking it out of the ATM. Those transactional relationships are relationships that might suit you right now, and maybe it feels good now or whatever it may be. But at the end of the day, a transactional relationship is doomed to fail because eventually someone's going to stop wanting to be an ATM when someone continues to take so much. So I think what we're talking about is the world we live in. Are you a relationship person, Or are you a transactional, let me see what I can get out of this athlete for as long as I can get it. And once I milk this athlete dry, I'll throw him out in the wild and I don't care what happens.
Yeah, and that reminds me, Dan, of some of the conversations we've had more related to faith again now that, it's you and I will go through the rest of our lives and we're going to live our lives either according to God's way or the world's way.
Yeah.
And the world's way is in many ways evil and in many ways very deceptive. The Bible calls Satan the great deceiver. And that's what I believe as a Christian man that's happening in our society. Society is deceiving people. And even in the sports world, like we're talking about now, when you take a 7th grade girl and put this carrot in front of her about college education, we'll make you a pro player. We'll make sure you make millions of dollars. There's a lot of deception there. That number one, is that what's important in this girl's life? Yeah. There's more things. There's things that are more important that we should be emphasizing. So in a way, the athletic world is succumbing to that deception with our young people, and I find that very sad.
Yeah, and that's like you said, the great deceiver, right? Is making sure that we're talking about this deception, that we're talking about these issues that arise, that we're having the conversations that need to be had so that we can protect people and look out for each other. I don't know how people do it without God, because I don't know how you can live life without I don't know how you can find your way home without a compass. And so if you don't have the compass, AKA God, you're kind of wandering aimlessly, and those that wander aimlessly are easily maneuvered and easily kind of brought into situations. When you don't know where you're going, somebody can lead you astray. And we'll talk about that and more, as this is called Blessings in Baseball. Dukes and I will have plenty to talk about after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life, bringing you faith, positivity, and the Almighty God above all. It's great to have a sports show, but I don't have it without the big guy. And so here on Wake Up Call and wherever I go, we pay respect to the one that deserves it most. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, this is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge, and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item, available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York. Open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond. You can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma and Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have in any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville Bees. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognize that we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career, it's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, hanging out with you where sports truly meets that thing called life. Hope you're having a fantastic morning this morning, and I hope you had a wonderful long Labor Day weekend. And with that being said, we're here with Blessings in Baseball. You know it from being with us on Wednesdays bi-monthly, and now it has moved to Tuesdays bi-monthly, every other Tuesday, with Dukes Knutson and myself, Dan Tortora. Dukes, the press box manager of the Tampa Bay Rays, speaking on Blessings and Baseball, God, faith, and Major League Baseball. So we talked a lot about the baseball world, and as we transition to what we were talking about before the break of having a compass and having direction, I'd love to get your thoughts on that, Dukes. In the world that we're in today, where there's artificial intelligence, if we can't get lazy enough, and so there's AI, there's all this technology, there's so many things asking for our focus. You can get anything on demand. You don't have to watch TV. You don't have to get home to watch a TV show anymore. You basically don't have to commit to anything, right? You don't have to commit to a TV show. You don't have to commit to, checking this out online. You can get this then. You could get that. I mean, you can get things instantaneously. And in a world that offers us so many things to take our focus away, as well as the opportunity to do things when we want, how we want, it doesn't really create a culture where there's consistency, where there's focus, and where there's, like I said, a commitment. So being in a world where we can kind of do whatever we want, whenever we want, in some people's minds. Where does the compass come in, and how do we put God back at the center in a world that is now trying to create artificial intelligence to be their God in some cases?
Well, the word that comes to my mind is intentionality. We are responsible for our decisions, and I've made certain choices in my life, and again, I'm not trying to say this is for everybody, but technology, for example. I've never played a video game in my life. I just have no desire to. I watch sports on TV. I watch baseball games on TV. That's it. 2 or 3 years ago, I decided to quit watching the news because the news was getting me down. It's become so biased and so unreliable.
Yeah.
So a lot of these things that have become so popular in the world, the technology, all that kind of stuff, I just have never taken an interest in it. And so I intentionally stay away from it. I know the terms, but you talk about Instagram or Twitter. I've never been on them. I don't know what it's like. I don't want to clutter my life with that stuff. I know it's partially because I'm getting to be older too, where my desire is simplicity. I want my life to be as simple as possible, and just the things in my priority list are, time with the Lord. Am I spending daily time with the Lord? My quiet time, reading His Scripture. That is high priority for me. I was at the gym this morning early, and as I always do, usually I'm there at 5 o'clock in the morning, and one of the lifeguards asked me, "So how do you do it? How do you get up so early?" I said, "You get used to it."
Yeah.
I've been doing that for years and years and years. It's getting up at 4:30 in the morning to be at the gym by 5 it's not a sacrifice. It's not difficult. It's just my lifestyle that I choose. I always get a kick out of telling this story. I may have already told it to you too, Dan. I don't remember, but we all have 24 hours in a day.
Yeah.
But yet one of the most common excuses I hear from people is that, I don't have time. I don't have time for God. I don't have time to read my Bible. I don't have time. I'm too busy. No. We all have 24 hours in a day, but we all have to make choices. And your priorities are evidenced by how you use that time. So if you might say that, God's a priority in my life, and we can all say that, but is there evidence of that by the way you live your life? Are you spending time with them? Are you getting involved? Again, I go back to that word, making intentional choices about keeping God as the compass of your life, as you say.
Yeah. And like you said, I mean, going off of when you stated when people talk about not having time. I don't have time. I don't have time to text. I didn't have time to text you. Oh my God, I was so busy. Oh, I didn't have time to call you. I didn't have time to do this. I didn't have time to do that. This mentioning of not having time to X, Y, and Z. So that's the issue, that people have. I just don't have time, Dan. I'm just so busy. And I laugh when people tell me that they're busy because I know my schedule and I know what I do. And I know the amount, in order to take Labor Day off, which I kind of didn't, but in order to take Labor Day off, I was up until 3 o'clock in the morning prepping 15 interviews. So it was like, I'm going to take a break on Labor Day, but I was up on Labor Day until 3 o'clock in the morning doing stuff. But here's the thing. I have time to wake up and say, God, thank you for waking me up this morning. Thank you for all my friends. Thank you for my parents being alive. Thank you for my dog, my little girl. Thank you for my life. Thank you for doing what I love, loving what I do. That takes nothing. Well, it took a couple seconds, you know, to be driving in the car and say, God, there's something on my mind. I'd love to talk with you about it. To open up my Bible to, you know, Psalms or some of the pieces that I have kind of bookmarked, and to just look at certain things, to read them again, something that caught my eye before and really spoke to me, and going back to it. When people say they don't have time, it's, well, you're spending your this is my response to it. Well, you're spending your time doing something, right? Well, Dan, I have kids. Okay. A lot of people do. See, and I have a juxtaposition. I have two friends that have two kids. And, well, I mean, I got a bunch of friends that have two kids, but to use this as an example, I have two friends that have two kids. My one friend that has two kids, multiple jobs, and takes care of the kids during the day, he sends me a message every single day. Every day. 365 days in the year, maybe it's 364 that I'll get a message from him. My other friend, I won't hear from in years. And when you ask him why, he says, I have two kids, I got a job, I'm busy. And I always think about my other friend going, he's got two kids, he's got two jobs, and he finds a way. So the reality is, and this is a tough thing to hear, but I've had to deal with it in all different types of relationships, business and personal, romantic and friendship. People do what they want to do. They spend time on what they want to spend time on. So when somebody tells you they don't have time for something, it's not because they don't have time. It's because they didn't make time. And I think there's a difference.
Oh, and that's exactly what I was saying. You decide how to use that time. And I don't want to sound judgmental here. I hope I didn't, because we are all, well, most of us are busy today. We do have a lot of responsibilities. Yeah. You can't deny that. But I believe it's still possible to organize those in such a way where you live according to your priorities. And I firmly believe that if God is a priority in your life, and let's face it, what does the scripture say? What's the first commandment? First commandment is God's got to be number one.
Yeah.
Well, is God number one in your life? If it is, there should be evidence. I love going to visit my nephew and his family. He's got 4 kids, actually 5, one in heaven. And the oldest is 9. And every night when it's time to go to bed, they sit the 4 kids on the couch, and my nephew and his wife read a Bible story, and then they talk about it. Takes probably 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And those kids are so well behaved. They sit patiently, even the 3-year-old. They listen, they engage, they talk. They're not on a phone. And so that has become a fixture in their daily living. And I just, like I say, it does something to my heart every time I go to visit them and participate in the going to bed process. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah. And as adults, we do the same thing. We have to set the boundaries. We have to set the guidelines of how we're going to use that time. No matter how busy, if we're too busy, again, I believe that we have succumbed to Satan, because that's one of his greatest weapons in our world today, is busyness.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and it does. It becomes suffocating, right? Because when you get busy, and it's not that it's not good to be busy. I mean, I'm busy in a good way every day. And it's not saying, and like you said, it's not being insensitive to the fact of, you own a company. I know what that's like. You have kids. I don't know what that's like. But it's when you have responsibilities in your life, I'm not saying to people, and Dukes isn't saying to people, that we don't get that you have a busy schedule, that we don't get that you have a lot of things trying on you. But I can say this right now in this moment. I've been going. I came down to Florida. I listened to myself. I listened to my soul. I needed to relax. God and I needed to talk. So I got away and we did that. We should have did it more, but we did that. I should have done more. I came home on a bullet train. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Monday. Now it's Tuesday. And I can tell you right now that I feel that anxiety. I feel that stress right now. I feel that, like, why didn't I take a walk? Why didn't I jog? Why haven't I spent more time with my dog? Why haven't I prayed more? Why haven't I listened to more music? See, during COVID, I changed my life. During COVID, right at the start of it, I went through a breakup. I felt trapped. I felt powerless. I felt like I wasn't in control. I couldn't fix it. I couldn't make it better. I missed her. I was sad. It was eating me up inside. And so I left my house and I took a walk. And then I took another walk when I felt like I couldn't breathe. Then I took another walk. Then it was 10 days, and it was 20 days, and it was 40 days, and it was 80 days, and it was 200 days, and it was 300 days. Then it was a year. And it's like, and I changed everything. And I said to myself, it's not, can you change? It's, will you stay that way? Can you get there and stay there? And that was my big question to everybody during COVID, and I have to do a better job immensely at this myself. When you learn the right thing to do, or the good things to do, or the healthy things to do, will you continue? Will you keep it going? Because I said, once we get busy and once life gets normal again, am I going to keep talking to God as much as I do? Am I going to keep walking? Am I going to keep breathing? Am I going to keep listening to music and doing some things? When I say breathing, I say, like, you know, that intentional stuff, intentional breathing. And I gave up most of it now that I'm busy again. And how do I feel? Anxious, stressed, like the devil's breathing on my neck. I feel not like me. So I am a prime example of when you get busy, which can be a beautiful blessing in and of itself. Do you take the time to say, thank you? How are you today, God? This is what I'm thinking. Thank you for this. Can we talk about this? Everything I did to reset myself and put myself on a good path is the stuff that I have not spent the time doing. I've gotten busy in a good way. But I'm inside of me screaming, take a walk, pray more, listen to music, spend more time with Lily. I'm hearing all of that, and I have to listen to that. So I'm happy we're talking about it today, because I am doing the opposite of what I asked myself during COVID, which is, will you remember what made you better once you get back to normal? And I remember it, but I'm not practicing it. And that was my concern of people, is that we learned a lot during COVID, but do we keep learning, or do we just go, oh, I learned a lot, and that was nice, and now we're back to it? Because I don't want to be back to it. I want to be focused on God.
It's such an easy trap to fall into, and we're all guilty. In Romans, it says that we all fall short. So we might know things. We might know we should be doing life differently, but then actually doing them is a whole nother matter. It's a whole nother level of commitment. This somewhat relates to what we're talking about, but I was talking to a major league pitcher about 2 weeks ago. A guy I've come to admire this guy tremendously. He's just a fantastic husband and father, and those are his priorities. And he's a very accomplished pitcher. But he said to me, he said, Dukes, he said, if I die and all people recognize me for is baseball, he says, I have failed miserably. He said, I'm not let's see, how did he say? He says, I'm not a baseball player who happens to be a Christian. I'm a Christian who happens to play baseball.
Yeah.
And that's that reflects of what I guess I'm trying to get across is it's setting priorities. It's doing your best to live by priorities, knowing we're all going to fall short. But the more we practice living those priorities, I think the more we move towards not perfection, but we move towards where we want to be. And again, living by our priorities.
Yeah. What are your priorities? What matters to you? You know, and I mean, it's like you said, most of us know, but do we do it? And normally I come to a place of like, constant stress to where it finally hits me, where it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I got to take a break. And I'm cognizant of it much more than I used to be. But I'll tell you this, Dukes, when we get off the air today, I'm taking a walk. Because I don't want to feel this way. And God deserves my time. And Lord knows I am not too busy for God. And I can't stand when people say they're too busy for me. There's one thing that you can do in society that, I mean, there's a bunch of things you can do body language wise, but there's one thing where when I see it, as calm of a man as I am, I want to break it off when somebody does this. Every time I see that finger, I'm like, I'm gonna break that finger off. And this'll be something you could appreciate in the press box. I had somebody at a football game last season sit in my seat so that he could eat breakfast. Now, mind you, we all have our own seats. There's a whole row of open seats, and he has a seat. And I get there, and it was an early game, and he's eating eggs at my seat. So I tap the guy on the shoulder, doesn't respond. I tap him again on the shoulder, and this guy was old enough to be my dad, maybe my grandfather. I tap him again on the shoulder, and he goes, yeah? And I said, I think you're in my seat. He goes, well, you're going to have to wait a minute. I'm eating breakfast. And he gave me the finger. And I looked at my buddy and I said, oh, there's an Italian piece of me right now that is just imagining how the rest of his breakfast is going to go. So I can honestly say that, you know, going back to this and the whole point of that, you know, are you willing to do this to God? Because let's say you pass away and that day comes and you go up to those gates and you say, hey, God, and God goes, I'm on a call. I'll get to you when I get to you. And then he starts playing that elevator music that we can't stand when we're trying to call somebody. I do not want God's elevator music to play for a long time when I get there, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, I've learned in my Christian walk that again, I just believe that anybody who wants to call themselves a Christian, mm-hmm. You're a follower of Christ. I said, do you know what that really means? You know, it's not an accident that the very first commandment is that God is number one. In the New Testament, Jesus was asked, you know, what's the greatest commandment? Yeah. Okay, we got these 10. What's the greatest? And he said, it's not any of those 10. He said, the greatest commandment is to love God. Love God. And not that we have to be outward in proving that, but the world will know whether we love God or not by the way we conduct our lives.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
They'll know by the fruit that we produce. And so I would challenge anybody who calls themselves a Christian, you know, is God truly number one in your life? Because that's what he asks for. That's what he commands. And is there evidence to support that God is number one in your life?
Yeah. And it's funny that you say that, because that was something that somebody told me a long time ago. They said, Dan, when someone meets you, we know that you believe in God. They said, you don't have to say it. You don't even have to be talking about it at all. It's just something that you can see. And there's times where people say that, and I'm like, I am doing such a bad job of it. But it's that makes you feel good, right? When it's just a part of you, when you don't have, because I don't believe that God is the megaphone person. I don't think that's what he's looking for. You know, we have people that do that. We have people that stand on corners and tell everybody that they're going to hell on a megaphone, and they're holding up, boards and whatnot. And I don't think that was ever God's mission. I think that screaming that you believe in God and everybody should know it, I don't believe in that. I believe in God saying, hey, when you go in, what is it? You go into your room, you shut your door, you get down on your knees and you pray, and I'll pray with the door open, I'll pray with the door closed. But Saint Daniel means a lot to me with, obviously my name connection and knowing his story. And Saint Daniel, he prayed. And when they told him to stop, he prayed. And he prayed with the door open, and he prayed with the window open, and they heard him. He could have shut the window. He could have got under his bed. He could have whispered. But he prayed. And he didn't pray with a megaphone being obnoxious, but he also didn't hide. And I think in the world we live in today, Dukes, it's not that people don't believe in God. It's not that there aren't good people. It's that the people that don't believe, or the people that are doing bad things, they feel so comfortable in today's society being so loud. And it's not that I'm asking Christians to pick up a megaphone. It's just that I'm asking for us to not be afraid.
I believe that our number one responsibility as a Christian is found in Matthew 28, the Great Commission. And right before he left the earth, Jesus said to go into all the world and proclaim Jesus. And I hear what you're saying, and I agree with you that the megaphone approach, as you call it, is probably not the best approach. I remember walking out of the seventh game of the 1991 World Series in Minneapolis. And right there on the street corner, there was the megaphone guy. And many people were mocking him as they were leaving, jubilant because the Twins had just won the World Series. And some friends of mine got into a discussion on, what a lousy approach this is. But then we started talking. I said, what if one person out of those 50,000 came out of that Metrodome, and because of this guy, they found a relationship with the Lord? One person out of 50,000. Well, I'll tell you what, Dan, I came to believe that I'll take that guy over the many of us, and I include myself, who talk a good game, but we're not going into the world. We're not proclaiming Jesus. We're not saying anything to anybody. When's the last time you brought someone to Christ? And if you're not doing that, then in my mind, the megaphone guy is doing a better job.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point to make. I mean, I say what I say because of the ones that I've heard of, like, the constant negativity and just screaming at people and telling people that they're going to die. But I get what you're saying in the sense of to not be afraid to go out there and to not be afraid to talk about it, because exactly. I mean, and that hit me. Before we close Blessings of Baseball here on Wake Up Call with Dukes Knutson and myself, Dan Tortora, it hit me that when I started broadcasting, I talked about God, and I talked about God so much, and so, like, it just wasn't on nothing was stopping me on my mind. And in the last couple of years, when I talk about God, as it's coming out of my mouth, there's this, like, are you sure? Do you want to? What's society going to think? What about woke people? What about people that don't believe? What about this? What about that? What about people that miscommunicate? And I never had all those. When I was a kid growing up, God, family, God, every time we eat, God. And now when I go to a restaurant, I pray before every meal. when I do the sign of the cross before my meal, in my head, I'm thinking, did somebody just see me and were they offended? And I don't like that I think that, but it's like our society here in America has gotten to a point where it's almost like they want you to feel bad for being a Christian, which to me makes me sad.
One thing that I've started to do in recent years, you mentioned the sign of the cross. I bet you I make that. I make the sign of the cross literally 100 times a day.
I'm with
Whenever a thought comes to my mind about, rather than just in my mind saying, thank you, Lord,
Yeah.
I make the sign of the cross just as a sign of my outward expression of gratitude. And like you, when I first started doing that, it was like, oh, did anybody see that? Now I could care less. I hope they do see it and ask me about it.
Yeah.
Because that gives me an opportunity then to go out and proclaim the good name of Jesus.
As my grandmother would say, when people say, why do you love God? She said, why not? So with that being said, Dukes Knutson here on Wake Up Call. Blessings in baseball every other Tuesday. So we'll see you in a couple of weeks here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora with Dukes again. And as always, Dukes, I appreciate you.
Love you, man.
I love you too. Have a good day.
Bless you. Bye-bye.
Bless you too. And coming from Dukes Knutson here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports truly meets that thing called life. And man, I mean, can't we all get better? I can get better. I never thought that I would think that. I never thought that would hit my mind that I would ever just in my head be wondering, did I offend somebody by what I just did, by doing the sign of the cross? Did that make somebody mad? Is somebody bothered by me? It's like, who cares? Right? Who cares? Who cares? Why would it bother you? Why would the sign of the cross bother you? Is it someone pointing a gun at you? Is it someone telling you you're a bad person? I feel like when people see the sign of the cross and they get offended, it's because they're guilty. There's something inside of them that knows that they did something wrong. And when they see the sign of the cross, it makes them think of God. And when they think of God, they think about what they did. Because why else would the sign of the cross offend you? Why else would somebody dying because they love you offend you? Why else would someone's good nature, kindness, love, and generosity offend you? Why would perfection offend you? Why would goodness offend you? How does God become offensive to culture? How does God become offensive to a group of people? How? And that's where I get lost in all this. God is not this just flawed human walking about the earth doing terrible things. We are. We're the flawed humans. And God is going to offend us. We're the offensive. We have been given every opportunity to succeed, every opportunity to do good, and look at what we've done. This country is not the country I grew up in. It's not the country my grandfathers fought for. This country has become so focused, not that they weren't in the past, but this country doesn't care if you can't afford it. Doesn't care if you don't feel safe. Doesn't care if your kids have a good education. My parents raised me to be better than the politicians I see today on every side of the coin. My parents raised me to have morals and values that I don't see in our leadership. The people that we're trusting with our lives, with our health care, with how much things cost, with rules and regulations, with safety and education. The people that we entrust our lives in, they weren't raised by people that raised me. They weren't raised by people like my parents. And if they were, then shame on them. because my parents raised me with morals and values. You don't hurt one person, let alone a million. You do not make a decision for other people without consulting those people. You do not hurt people for any reason, even if the reason is I wasn't raised to be like the things I see today. I wasn't raised that way. And so to be 37 years old and have time fly by and me to remember being 7 years old and talking about God, and now when I talk about God, I have a feeling in my stomach that kind of takes some of my air out and says, Dan, what are you doing? What if one of the clients you work with doesn't want you to talk about God and they pull their money? What if one of the people on your show listening doesn't like God and they stop listening? Well, then pull your money and stop listening. Because one day I'm going to die, and if I listen to your money and I listen to your hate and I listen to your negativity and your disillusion of what this world is, then I'm going to the same place you are, and it's really hot down there, but it ain't Florida hot. It's hot. And I don't want to go there. You know, I feel like we all could do a better job, but why has it become taboo to believe in God? Taboo to talk about it? Taboo to live within it? Why is it a problem for people? Why are people easily offended by it? That's what blows my freaking mind. Why are you offended by God? Why? How does God become offensive to you? To me, I don't understand. I don't. I never will, because I don't act that way. So let's jump into the ingredients to success. Proudly presented by Avicolli's on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, 7839 Oswego Road in Liverpool. Open Tuesday through Sunday, closed on Monday. Tuesday through Sunday, lunch, dinner, and drinks. As always, drink responsibly. You have the pizza casual side, you have the fine dining side, you have the outdoor right now with weather permitting, and you have the bar. You can also call them at 315-622-5100 or go online to myavicollis.com. It's myavicollis.com. By doing any of that, you can get in touch with them for takeout, delivery, and catering. 315-622-5100 or myavicollis.com. My ingredients to success: be a better Christian. Okay? And these are my views, not Avicolli's, these are mine. But be a better Christian. How do we be a better Christian? Number one, you can't be afraid. You can't be afraid to practice your faith. Be a better Christian. Be a better person of faith. How about this? To include all faiths, as I always do. Be open to God. How do we do that better? You really think that life is just random? That we were just brought here by random? That everything happened randomly? None of this was by intelligent design. All of this was random. There are people that would rather believe that aliens created us than God created us. Have you ever seen an alien? No. And so, in that respect, so you believe in aliens, which you can't see, but you think it's strange to believe in God, who you also haven't seen just kind of sitting there talking with you in most cases. So I'm just trying to understand. I'm trying to understand where people are coming from. Because if you can't believe in God because you haven't seen God yet, then how are you believing in, oh, well, aliens made us? It's intelligent design. Be a better human. How do you be a better human? It's not hard to be a better human. Be nice to people. Listen to people. Have conversations with people where you're not just seeking for someone to hear from you all the time, but actually have purposeful conversations with people. Talk about things that matter to them, not just the things that matter to you. Get to know who they are. Get to know why they are. Get to know what matters in their life, what makes them tick, what's important. See, life gets lost in the fact that a lot of us are selfish. A lot of us just want to hear ourselves talk. We just want to know what we think. We already know what we think. Why would you have conversations to just hear what you think? Everybody knows what you think. Or I shouldn't say everybody knows what you think. You know what you think. That was my point. You already know what you think. You already know what you think. So why do you have to sit there and listen to yourself talk? You already know what your thoughts are. Listen to somebody else for a change. Hear what they have to say. Hear what matters to them. Care about other people. You want to change the world? Care about other people. Make that a priority. I'm not saying stop caring about yourself. I'm not saying don't listen to yourself. I'm not saying you don't matter. I'm saying you do matter. But start treating other people like they matter too. Listen to them. Hear them. Because when we don't do that, when we don't listen, when we don't care, that's when things get dicey. When we don't care, that's when things get dicey. We have to be, better Christian, better Muslim, a better Jew, a better Hindu, better Buddhist, whatever your religion is. But just think about that. Ingredients to success, to be a better follower of God. How do we do that? How do we become a better follower of God? Well, we have to be willing to listen to each other. We have to be willing to sit down and learn and grow. You become better when you make it reality that it's not all about you. It's never about you. Solely, right? It can't just be about one of us. It can't just be about one human being. What type of world would we live in when it's just about us? Gosh, that would be a boring world to live in. It's just us. It's only about me. There's nobody else in this society. There's nobody else here. Just me by my dang self. What type of life is that to live when you're by yourself? Don't be afraid to believe in God. Okay, those are my ingredients to success today. Don't be afraid to believe in God. Don't be afraid to talk about God. Don't be afraid to be happy about God. I'm not saying get a megaphone. I'm not saying push God on people. I'm not saying threaten people. That's not who God is. But I'm saying talk about it. We talk about everything. We talk about the Kardashians. You think talking about God is crazier than talking about the Kardashians? You think talking about God is crazier than watching reality TV and talking about how we think this one person's relationship's going and who they should date? You think talking about God is crazier than watching The Bachelor and trying to tell The Bachelor through the TV who they should date? We consume all of this stuff that is nothing. It's fluff. All it is fluff. Right? We're watching television saying, I don't like that girl. I like that girl for him. I watch Big Brother. I watch the live feeds. I'm watching people talk for hours of the day, any day of the week. I can't spend 5 minutes with God. So my ingredients to success for you are to try to open God into your life. I'm not saying that life is perfect. And I'm not saying that it always makes sense. But what I am saying is, we've tried a lot of things, and they haven't worked. Could we maybe try to love up on God a little bit and give the best we can? My ingredients to success for you today is to open your heart to God, to listen, and to see if beyond pills, beyond alcohol, beyond extracurriculars, beyond, all these things that you've tried to medicate yourself, to help yourself. None of us go through life unscathed. Could it make sense to give God a shot to help us find peace, find joy, find love, find kindness, find serenity, find goodness, find answers? This world does a lot of things, but the more it takes God out, the crazier it gets. And I am not ignorant enough to call that a fluke. We'll take a step aside for a fast break. We'll be back right after this on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, where sports meets life. Avicolli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicolli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicolli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicollis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout Central and Upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. This is a special message from 317 at Montgomery restaurant owner Joel Carpenter. Open Tuesday through Saturday for your dining pleasure on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York.
We wanted to be a part of the resurgence of Syracuse. We saw a lot of money being put into bringing people back downtown and thought that, we'd like to be a part of that. I love putting together a good dish where people see it first, they fall in love with it, and then it tastes just as good as it looks. We want to provide the best food in Syracuse that we possibly can, and we want you to leave here talking to your family, your friends about what you had to eat first and foremost, but also our service, and to walk out feeling like you're part of our family. I work out in the front of the house a lot, and I love walking to every single table, asking them how everything is, and people looking at me and smiling and saying, this is the most amazing short rib I've ever had. This is the most amazing filet I've ever had. And Donna is great. Sarah's amazing. Thank you for coming over and talking to us. And them just being truly happy for the experience that they've gotten.
317 at Montgomery Restaurant, part of the fabric of downtown Syracuse, located on 317 Montgomery Street in Syracuse, New York. Open Tuesday through Saturday for a unique and memorable dining experience. Welcome back here to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. I want to thank you for tuning in to the show every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. YouTube.com and Facebook.com, both /WakeUpCallDT, and on WakeUpCallDT.podbean.com. Once the shows go live, they jump into the archives. Check us out on Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes, and Apple Podcasts, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, Podchaser, Spotify, TuneIn, and YouTube by searching Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. Big time thanks to our incredible partners, Carvel DeWitt, the Wildcat Sports Pub, GG Cards and Breaks, our sports card shop of choice, Mon Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Great Lakes Honda City, formerly Honda City of Liverpool, Avicolli's, PB&J's Lunchbox, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, 317 at Montgomery Street. The name of the location is the name of the restaurant, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Pizza Man, Mother's Cupboard, and of course we are the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. It's Fins Up every single month on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. We appreciate you being here, of course, with the Dolphins as well as the Bobcats and the Alfred University Saxons. We look forward to talking with you tomorrow. Have a fantastic day. Thanks to Dukes. Thanks to Avicolli's, and God bless.